Come here. Get off.
Hey y'all, welcome to this week's episode of The Turn On. So, this week we're going to take a bit of a walk down memory lane and have story time.
Story time.
Is that our story time song now?
Maybe
Okay.
not. I might not be able to
it's a
remember
start.
the melody next time, but okay.
That works too. So, we were interviewing somebody recently, and they were talking about how great their mom was in terms of like having conversations about sex. Like they might ask a crazy question or, a question that felt like it came out of left field. And, they were like, my mom just kind of took a deep breath and answered the question even when it was a little, difficult. And it got me thinking about what conversations we may have had. I feel like, at least I know on my end, they weren't quite what she was describing.
Yeah, I was about to say, this is going to be a short ass episode because I ain't got shit to say. We just acted like it didn't happen. So.
Yeah, so I have two conversations.
Okay.
That stand out. So I'll start, I'm from Ohio,
We'll do a sandwich. Yours, mine, yours. Okay.
Okay, cool. And pretty much everything that I learned about sex, like in terms of sex education, was at school. There was no talk, at home. I was raised by my dad. He definitely wasn't touching that shit. So my school had sex ed in the 5th grade. And so half of the year we did sex ed. This white woman came in and taught us how to put condoms on bananas, which I feel like is the standard thing, but that's exactly what happened. And we had like a little box where you could put an anonymous question that she would answer. And that's all I remember about the class. And then the other half, we were in dare. So it was don't have sex because you might get pregnant, and don't
sex,
do drugs because you might die.
Recorders.
Yeah, like that was it. But so I truly believe that my father, his whole thing was just leave it to school to teach her. And so we never had questions or conversations. I never asked questions. If I wanted to know something, I got a book out of the library because I've always been this person. And that was really it. So I can only remember one time my dad saying something about sex. And in the moment I was grossed out, and I'm still grossed out. It's still disgusting to me. Yeah. So we were at the movies with some family friends, and this is so gross. So there was everybody had popcorn. And I'm trying to remember exactly how this happened, but somebody was complaining about having popcorn stuck between their teeth. It's before the movie started. And my dad said something to the effect of it being like when you get hair stuck between your teeth. Exactly.
For two reasons. One is your daddy with thin hair between your teeth.
Right. So I was fucking mortified because I did understand what he was saying. I think I was in the 8th grade. And I remember that the family friend was like, yo, like, Kenrya's right here. And he was like, I mean, she has sex ed. She know. And I tried to like keep my face impassive because it wasn't a conversation that I wanted to be in. So I just decided to play dumb and act like I knew nothing about what was happening next to me.
Like I didn't hear it.
Yeah, like it'll go away if I just pretend that it's not happening here. Exactly. Yeah, that face is what that memory does to my brain. But it is, as far as I can remember, the only conversation I've ever actually had with my dad, because I have one more conversation, about sex until years later when I told him that I had an abortion, but that wasn't really about sex so much about sanity.
Bitch, that was like this decade.
Yeah, it was. I was firmly in my 30s. Yeah. So that's my first story about talking about sex. I know.
So what's interesting is like my family kind of kept it just, we didn't talk about it and we glossed over it. But the older I get, the more open my family is. Like my granny would talk about it, not from a like an educational, but from like a, let me tell you what I heard these freaking white women do. That kind
Right.
of stuff. She told me that Donald Trump, the reason that Russia had all that on Donald Trump was because they got pictures of white women shitting on his chest. Where
So
she found
had
this
it
out,
wrong.
where she found this out, I don't know. But anyway, so sorry the hiccups. So we really never had lots of conversations about sex. Like as a kid, sex was just unheard of in my home. I do
Even
remember,
though it was a whole bunch of y'all niggas. Hey, where y'all come from?
Exactly. So I do remember once my great grandma died, little granny. Little granny died and everybody went there to clear out her house. That process has me so scarred about like, if I die, Kenrya, just light a match, okay?
Remember you was that when you text me and was like, bitch, here's my password?
No, that was I think that maybe that, no, it wasn't that. No, this is when great granny died. Like this was when I was a kid.
Oh, okay.
So little granny died and they were up cleaning her house and she had this little, they found her old school douche, the thing with the hose, right? And then they found these playing cards with like naked people on them.
Oh,
and I remember my
I've
aunts
heard
like
of those.
giggling and stuff like, ooh, granny was, into stuff. And so like, that's the only thing that we've talked about. But now that I look back on it, my mother dated this guy all through high school, same guy all through high school. And she got pregnant, I want to say her senior year. And the baby was born prematurely and didn't survive. Like it was some 1970 shit. I'm convinced if the baby was born today, I'd have a big sibling.
Yeah.
So I think maybe we kept those conversations quiet because they were like, your mama did it, so let's not let you do it. But yeah.
So they thought that if we didn't talk about it, it wouldn't happen.
Yeah, which I'm like, no, you're gonna know that, you're gonna know all of it. Every bit of it. So yeah. And again, like when I die, I'm open about my chest of shit. So just
I'm about to say everybody already knows.
Yeah.
This show has ruined any type of privacy around.
Yeah, like no. They'd be like, oh, she mentioned that in episode 10. Yeah.
Right.
So, okay. Yeah. Okay, so what else do you have?
Okay.
I feel like I'm gonna be afraid of this one.
No. I don't think so. That one was scarring. This one is funny in hindsight, but mortifying at the time. So, everyone knows Judy Blume's Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret. Mm-hmm. And I had it and I read all of everything. And I think I've said on this show before, I was reading things that were inappropriate for me forever. Like in the 3rd grade, I was taking Danielle Steele books out of the library and reading them because nobody was paying me any fucking attention. I read all of V.C. Andrews in the 3rd grade, 2nd grade, all of it. Yeah, I was a voracious reader. I was a very good reader, and I was reading everything, and nobody was paying me any fucking attention. I think they were just glad I was reading. It wasn't even like I was hiding the shit. It had her whole ass face on the back of every copy. But I did read age-appropriate things, but this book that I'm about to mention was not that. Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret is probably about 4th, 5th grade, maybe, because it talks about puberty and, it stars Margaret who wants to get her period, and she does. We must increase our The bigger, the better, the tighter the sweater, the boys are want us or some shit. And but a lot of people don't know that there was a boy companion book that was all about puberty from the point of view of little people who identified as boys. And it's called Then Again, Maybe I Won't. And I was trying to remember what it was called today, like on my way home driving from acupuncture. Like, what the fuck is this book called? I remember the cover, but couldn't remember what it was called, but I got it. And so, as I always say, I was raised by my dad, but I would occasionally, when I was younger, visit my mom. And there was a weekend where I was visiting her, and I remember she was in the kitchen cooking, and I came running into the kitchen, like dying laughing, like holding my stomach, doubled over. Oh my God, this is the funniest thing I've ever seen. And my mother is like, what? And I'm like, this boy in this book? Ha 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 ha. She's like, okay. I'm like, he just had a wet dream. Now, I was probably like 7. I think I read this in the 2nd grade. My mother looked like a deer. I just talked to her too. I'm sure she doesn't remember this at all. It's like a deer caught in fucking headlights. Like, she had no idea what she was supposed to say to me about this. And I thought it was hilarious. And she was like, well, what's a wet dream?
That's how you know a parent don't know what the fuck to say when they're like, so let me ask, what do you think this is?
Exactly. And I was like, he was sleeping and he had a dream. And then some stuff came out and it was wet and it was a dream. And she was like, okay. She's like, why is it funny? I was like, because it's funny in the book. And she was like, all right. And I went back to my book and kept on reading. There was no engagement around.
You know what? That reminds me of another story.
Hey, good.
Okay, so I remember in middle school, again, Midwest, you're black or white, right? Like race is literally like.
We had Puerto Ricans on the west side.
We had my Puerto Rican cousins lived on the west side. There was one guy. He was Latinx. I don't know if he was Puerto Rican, but his last name was De Jesus. We called him De Jesus. His last name was De Jesus, right? So I forgot the boy's name, Boy De Jesus. There was a rumor around the school that he had sex with a girl and he peed in her.
Oh God.
So, right? So I remember going home and I remember talking to my mom like, Mama. I can't say this seriously. Mama, this boy was having sex with this girl and he peed in her. My mama said, God. Y'all little dumb motherfuckers don't even know what you're talking about. That ain't even possible. And I just scurried off. So yeah.
I feel like so much of their lives were made easier by us just walking away.
Right? Like, she probably called her girlfriend like, I can't believe. But then she just walked off.
Motherfucker. Yeah.
Yeah, I was just like, you know what? All right, girl. Like,
you call me dumb, I'm gone. Fine.
And she was right.
Okay.
But
right.
I was like, so he can't pee in her. Yeah. So,
Lord.
yeah.
Yeah. It's sad though. Or is it that's the extent of the conversations that we had? I think we're doing different with our children.
Definitely trying to do different with our kids. Yeah. I mean, and I still nut up when I try to when I have to talk to my son about stuff, I take a deep breath. Well, he don't like to ask me. Let's be clear about that. Yeah, he's like, I'm not discussing this with you. But he does have lots of men in his life
who he feels comfortable.
He feels comfortable talking about this stuff too. But yeah, you gonna know way too much. Even if at some point I gotta sit you down, tape your eyes open, and keep you from plugging your ears with cotton.
Oh Lord, we haven't gotten there yet. So it's more like laying groundwork, right? So we have lots of conversations about consent and autonomy and one other thing. Oh, and gender expression and gender
Mhm.
identity and that kind of stuff. Like that's really as far as we have gotten. She's about to be 10. And, periods and puberty and all of that kind of stuff and, body stuff. But we haven't made that leap yet because
Well,
it's probably coming. It's
I
probably a
was
conversation
talking
to have very
to
soon. But
I was talking to my son's therapist about this. Like, I was like, he ain't trying to talk to me about it. She was like, he's not really interested. We've talked about it. He told me that some kids were having oral sex in the playground because they have the middle school and the elementary school. So the middle schoolers were like having oral sex, and he was just freaked out about it. And this isn't like, I remember one of our good friends.
This is when school was still open, or wait, he's back, right?
He's not back. But this was when school was open.
Wow.
Like, so, but one of our good friends had the same situation where her kid was like, why do you put your mouth on it? Because oral sex was, I was like, wow, y'all are like real advanced.
I mean, back when we were that age, it wasn't a conversation. I remember there was a girl and the whole conversation was that she let somebody finger her. Of course, it was about her letting somebody do it to her and not the little person who did it to her. But okay, patriarchy. But oral wasn't even, it was still really taboo when we were.
Yeah, I was
that
introduced
age.
to oral sex when the demon who shall not be named dropped 12 play. And
right.
I was like, they put their mouth on it? And now I'm like, oh, yes. Yes.
See, I don't even think I realized. You're right. That was my first exposure, but I don't. Oh,
I didn't know that it was happening.
What it was. Yeah.
Sorry. I didn't know that that's what was going on, except I went to one of my girlfriend's cousins' sleepovers, and they were like high school kids. And so they knew what was going on, and they had the boys come over, and the boys was like dancing, and it was like acting like that they were doing it. And I was like, what? And so when the boys left, me and my girl was like, look, they kept putting their face down there. We need to understand what's happening.
So you got an education?
Not a lot, because they didn't know what the fuck. They was just like, yeah, they licked down there. I mean, it was like the very 101, very remedial class. But yeah.
Wow. Well, hey, that's our story time of talking to our elders about sex. We love to hear.
Maybe we can do a dispatch on it or something. Like if you got a good story, call us and tell us. We can run that at some point, or just email us or hit us up in our socials. But yeah.
Yes, DM us or email us at theturnonpodcast@gmail.com, and we'll run you. Maybe we can even get some audio from you, depending on how intriguing your story is. Yeah. Awesome.
Yes, indeed. Mm-hmm. All righty. Well, that wraps up this quickie. So this is Erica and Killa, two hoes, making it clap. Hey.
This episode was produced by us, Kenrya and Erica, and edited by Ballistic. The theme music is from Brazy. Hit subscribe right now in your favorite podcast app and at youtube.com/theturnonpodcast so you'll never miss an episode.
Then follow us on Twitter at @TheTurnOnPod and Instagram at @TheTurnOnPodcast. And you can find links to books, transcripts, guest info, what's turning us on, and other fun stuff at theturnonpodcast.com.
And don't forget to email us at theturnonpodcast@gmail.com with your book recommendations and your pressing sex and related questions.
And you can support the show by leaving us a 5-star review, buying some merch, or becoming a patron of the show. Just head to theturnonpodcast.com to make that happen.
Thanks for listening, and we'll see you soon. Holla.